Okay. Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Dave from the Character Animator team, and this is Character Animator Live. This is the show where we take your static artwork and bring it to life using the magic of Adobe Character Animator. I'm your host, Dave Warner, aka OK Samurai on the YouTubes, and I'm joined by some of the rest of the Character Animator team here in the live chat to answer your questions. So feel free to ask things along the way, and hopefully someone will give you an answer. We were fortunate enough, though, a couple of you guys submitted some artwork that we're going to take a look at live today. There's two really good examples from two of the users out there that we're going to kind of walk through and show some common issues that artwork can have, particularly, if a character is warping weird or not rigging correctly. We're going to work on some of that stuff and then show you some more advanced features towards the end of cycle layers animation, changing a character state to put on a robot suit, some really cool stuff that's possible that people are just starting to really dig into what's possible with Character Animator, and it's really, really cool to see that. So yeah, that's where we're at so far. So I'm going to get started here. So again, feel free to ask questions in the chat as they come up, and we'll try our best to answer them. There's a little bit of delay between the video and me seeing it, so if it takes 30 seconds, a minute, or longer to answer a question, I apologize. That's how it goes. First time doing this, things will probably go horribly wrong at some point, so I apologize in advance for that as well. Okay, so we're going to start off today with this really cool character that was sent in to us from Cesar Parmiggiani, Cesar Parmiggiani. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, but he's emailed me back and forth a few times about this character that he was trying to get to work. So we'll move to the laptop cam now. Let's go there. Okay, so hopefully you can see it now. And this is a really cool character, and he was saying he was having trouble with it bending, moving, and doing some stuff, and so I wanted to take a closer look at it and see why these issues were happening. So really cool character. I'm going to go into Character Animator and bring it in right now. So let's go to Character Animator, File, Import, this one right here, and we'll open it up. And let's just take a look at it in the puppet panel. So when you first bring something into Character Animator, it goes into the puppet panel. And so I kind of have a sense, this is kind of like an x-ray view of what my character looks like. So, excuse me, I can see, actually let me turn my webcam on here so you can see me here with red dots on my face. So this is kind of an overview of what your character looks like and what's going on with that particular character. So I can see, I've got my character and my organization here. Looks like he's named all the things correctly: nose, mouth, right eye, left eye, all of that stuff. So it's looking pretty good overall. But let's try to add it to a scene and see what happens. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom left corner, say add to scene, and let's check out how he looks. Okay, well, number one, he's kind of moving all the way to the side. It's cool that he's moving with my head, so I know that some sort of head tracking is working. But he is, it doesn't look like everything's working exactly correctly. Also, I forgot to turn my microphone on, so let me do that. And now we'll see his mouth moving as well. Now, it looks like Cesar's a little bit in between steps right now, where he's using some big mouths and then some small mouths, which I think were taken from used from one of the template characters, which is great. But it looks like he's halfway in the process, so the mouth is kind of jumping right now, but I'm sure he'll fix that in a future version. All right, so the first thing, we got to pin this guy down so he's not floating all crazy like this. So let's go back to the puppet panel, and what I'm going to do is, with my character selected, I'm going to use the Fix tool, which is this little pin thumbtack down here, and I'm going to pin his feet down. I'm just going to put the pin tool on his feet and pin him down like that. Fixed 1 and fixed 2. Basically, I'm nailing these to the floor is what I'm trying to do. So let's go back to the scene and see how this looks. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. It's a little bendy. I could add more fixed points if I wanted the tips of his toes not to move as much, and I can add sticks to his legs as well. There's some video tutorials about that. Yeah, Kyle Kyle is saying that the red dots on my face are creepy. Yes, they are, but that is the face tracking, and that's how it works. So if you see it jumping around, like sometimes it'll pick up the posters behind me instead of my face. So that's why I have a desk lamp right here. And usually I'll take my hat off too if I'm doing this, just to get the clearest facial expression. We found it's not really about the quality of the webcam. It's more about how well lit your face is, and you know, how close up you are, and all of that stuff. So if I really want some movement, that's the best way to go about it. But okay, so Cesar was saying that when he drags his character's hands, look at some of the weird things that are happening. Okay, so obviously something's not right. I don't think this is how he wanted to to animate his character. And this is a pretty common issue. I mean, this still happens to me. I've made, 20, 25 characters at this point, and still I'll run into an issue where the warping is not quite doing what I want it to do. So one of the ways to fix this is to look at the mesh view of the character. So let's take a look, and let's see. Down here at the bottom it says Show Mesh. If I click on that, you get this view, and let me change the background over here so you can see exactly how it looks a little bit better. You get this view of where the triangles are created in the character to determine where it will warp and bend and what the quote-unquote mesh is for this character. And you'll notice for this character, the mesh is kind of extending beyond the body, which tells me that it's thinking that my character is just a big rectangle, essentially, and not just one big character. If these triangles were just over the character's face and arms and everything, then maybe it would be a different story. So something is definitely wrong. So if I just do the head, that's looking okay. The right eyebrow, the left eye, the mouth, the nose. But once I get into the head, things start to get, it's incorporating all this different stuff. So I took a look at this when Cesar originally sent it to me, and I think I know what the issue is. So I'm going to go into the body. And first I'm going to move the neck just into the body area. Might as well just keep everything organized into the head and the body folders. And then I'm going to zoom in here. And I noticed that there are these little, really microscopic purple specks that are on the side of this character. And what that's doing is creating an issue that Character Animator we call these islands, basically. And these means these are disconnected pieces of artwork that are messing up the whole mesh, because the Character Animator is analyzing the data and saying, oh, this must be part of the character, so I'll try to connect this to everything else. And it messes some things up. So what I'm going to do is find these layers, find these little things, and delete them. So I'm just going to find it, delete it, and over here, and delete this. Now I noticed there was a question in the chat. What's the best step to add the point, on the artwork or in Character Animator? So specifically, we just showed how to do the fixed layer. We are starting to recommend people do it inside Character Animator. And the reason for that is Photoshop has kind of become a lot of tools for a lot of people, right? It was originally, photo manipulation and moving around, and now it's got a video timeline. Now it's got all sorts of different things. And so we have some avenues to put things in there, like these plus symbols or these draggable handles and whatnot, which you may have seen talked about in the tutorials. But Photoshop is not a rigging tool. That's not what it's meant for. And as we start to get into more complex rigging systems, we find that it's just going to be too complicated to do all that stuff within Photoshop, and it's probably easier to see the real-time feedback that you get within Character Animator. So our recommendation moving forward is going to be doing more and more things in Character Animator. Now, you can't do everything in Character Animator yet. There are some specific actions currently, like adding an origin point and some other stuff that only you can do only in Photoshop right now or Illustrator, but in the future that will change. So that's a great question, Peter. Thanks for asking. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and then let's go back to Character Animator and see what we find. See if that's saved. Now you saw that it did the live update incorporating my changes, and let's see if this looks better. Okay, so now the bending is working pretty well. And all I had to do was just get rid of that, those speck marks. And if I look at that mesh again, now look at what happens. Okay, now my character's looking correctly. So anytime that mesh is extending beyond the character, those triangles are coming beyond the character's regions, that something's up with with that. Dave asked a question, is this being recorded to watch again later? Yes, this will be archived on the YouTube channel sometime by the end of today. So feel free to, if you got work or life or things like that get in the way, feel free to do that. I'll also try to annotate it in the description to say specifically, hey, at 15 minutes in, we talked about this or that, in case you have specific issues or questions you're looking for. But we appreciate you being here for in any time. Okay. So let's see. So I kind of liked how Cesar was this character was looking, but the arms are kind of floppy and wobbly now and doing some weirdness. Yeah, work in quotes. So what I'm going to do is use sticks, and you've probably seen the tutorials about this. Sticks are a great way to make give your character some more structure and flexibility. So let's go here, and I will go to the body, and I'm just going to start adding some sticks. So I just picked this icon down here that kind of looks like a wing nut or something like that. It's a stick icon. I'm going to leave a little room for a bicep, and I'm just going to drag where a bicep and a forearm muscle or bone would be. Dave in the chat has a good point. He says, another way to fix this mesh problem, switch mesh shape from auto to contour. However, it will arbitrarily pick which things it considers islands and drop them. So what he's talking about is down here on the right-hand side, you see in Puppet Properties, you have a chance to say what you want the mesh shape to be. Do you want it to be auto, rectangle, or contour? You have some options there. I haven't fooled around with it that much, so I'm not going to get into it here. Maybe I'll show that in a future episode. But that's how you do it down here with the puppet properties. So basically, you just have to have part of your puppet selected here in the puppet panel and go from there. Okay, so I've added these sticks. Let's see how this character is looking now. Okay, so now it's pretty cool. He's got a little bendy arm, and you can see the elbow. His arm doesn't look just like, a wet noodle or spaghetti or something like that. It actually has some structure to it, which is great. Now, one of the things you notice is as I drag it, if I let go, it immediately goes back to its rest place. And one thing that I like to do is immediately change this to, instead of return to rest, to hold in place. So all I did is go to the properties over here, the dragger, I twirled it down, and then I went to, instead of return to rest, hold in place. And what this does is basically turn your character into a posable action figure. So if I put his hand here, it's going to stay there. Put his hand up here, it's going to stay there. And so this is a great way to kind of, get your character to put their hands on their hips or something like that. And as they move around, if I had my character more fixed points and stuff like that, it would probably look a little bit better. But you kind of get the sense of, you don't have to always have your finger on the mouse and keep it in a position and worry about it, getting back to a rest position. So typically I'll use this instead of the default structure. And we may default to hold in place instead in the future if that's what people want. So character's looking pretty good. There's one more thing I think I wanted to fix though. I notice when the hand goes in front of the body, that it's kind of going behind it's going in front of the pants, but it's going behind the shirt here. So I'm going to change that and go back into Photoshop and do some restructuring. Kevin in the chat just said, this fixed 2 of my characters. Thank you. Can you do a walking tutorial? Yeah, that's a great point. That's been a major request from a lot of people, and I think we'll do a walking tutorial in the future. There's a couple ways to do that. Either cycle layers, which I'll show you a little bit later on, or try to do it with sticks and dragging stuff. So that's a great topic for a future week. So we'll try to do that. Okay. So I got the body here, and notice the reason this is happening is if I look at my structure here on the right, the left arm is in front of the neck and the torso, but the right arm is behind it. So you're getting all these different orientations of how these things work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the left arm. Actually, let me zoom out so I can actually see what I'm doing here. I'm going to do, let's see, left arm. The left hand is its own group down here. I'm just going to move it out, get rid of this group, and I'm going to actually combine these, the left hand and the left arm, and flatten my artwork. I'm just pressing Command D. One thing we say is if you can flatten your complex artwork, it's okay. Like I always save a master version of my artwork that has all my layers. I have 300 layers or something like that for a character if I add a lot of shading and texture and whatnot. But for my character animator version, I flatten the artwork as much as I can because I find that leads to the least amount of warping issues and the best results in terms of speed and performance and all of that. So I'm a big fan of that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the neck and torso together. I'm going to put the right hand and the right arm together. And I'm actually going to bring those in front. So the right arm and left hand/arm are all in front. And all these other things I'm going to combine into the body. So left hand, right arm, and body. So I've basically simplified this down to, just a few artwork layers. So I saved it. Let's go back to Character Animator and see if this helps anything. Okay, now my character's weird right now, so I have to press Set Rest Pose to get him back to normal view. Anytime your character is not calibrated correctly, just either double click your face with all the creepy red dots on it, or press Set Rest Pose and it'll go back to that normal position. So now when I move my hands in front, you'll notice it looks like it's going entirely in front, which is great. And that's exactly what I want. So perfect. They're still going behind the head. You could do some extra stuff, if you wanted them to also go in front of the head. But for now, I am happy with this, and I like how this character is looking. So hopefully there were some tips there that help you with your own characters. This is a great character, Cesar. So again, thank you so much. And Cesar said he's going to share with me when he actually animates something, a finished product with this character. So I'm really looking forward to that. So great first example. Peter was asking about also the side view switch, being able to switch to a side view. Yes, I can show that in a future week as well. You can do it a few different ways. Probably key triggers is the best way to do that, and I'll show you how to do that with this next character actually. All right, so let's see. I'm going to switch back to the camera here while I switch my artwork out. So far, so good. And next one we're going to do is this character called Cyberman, and this was sent in by Lynne Mitchell. So thank you, Lynne, very much for sending this in. And this is a very cool character. This is a more complex character. There's 3 different states that I'll show you in a second. It actually turns into like an Iron Man style robot, and then does some flying and it has an animation that puts its suit on. This is really cool, and I think this is a great example of what's possible with Character Animator when you really push it to the limits. So let's see. I'm finding the artwork here. Cyberman. Here we go. All right. So Peter was saying in the chat, one more on Illustrator. I noticed there are some more glitches. One of the biggest things with Illustrator is there are a few things in Illustrator that don't translate that perfectly to Character Animator. I found when I use transparencies, gradients, strokes, there's some things that don't always translate 100% perfectly. And one of the ways to fix that, and I think this is defaulted in Preview 3, is you click a box that says Render as Image, and that will make everything unvectored, but basically come in as a raster image, and that tends to solve a lot, like 90% of those types of issues. But there's still some issues. We're trying to work that out. That will be easier and better in future versions, for sure, because we know a lot of you do use Illustrator because you want that lossless quality to your characters, and that's something that we'll hopefully continue to make even better in future versions. Okay. So Cyberman. So this guy is a really cool character, and one of the things you'll notice. So I think Lynne was using this for a corporate thing, a company, learning event or something like that. And she has 3 states to this character. You notice that over in my groups over here, I've got 3 different things. I've got Cyberman Fly, Cyberman Stand, and then Cyber Guy Normal. And what's cool about this? So here's my normal guy. Here's my standing guy, and then here's my flying guy. So she has these 3 different states, and the way that she's changing between those states is with these key trigger commands. Now you can do this in Photoshop or in Illustrator. So we've got, or in Character Animator, I should say. And so she's got a Z in parentheses with an exclamation mark behind it, and then an X for Cyberman Fly with parentheses around it. So let's take a look and see how exactly this character looks inside Character Animator. So go into Character Animator. Let's import. Command I is the shortcut for that. Cyberman, open. And so he's showing up in the puppet panel here, and I can notice all the different things. Pretty complex character. There are a lot of layers here, a lot going on, but we're going to try to figure out how to make them work here. So let's just bring him in by default and see what happens. So again, I go to Add to New Scene here in the bottom left corner. Open that up. And more complicated characters can take a little bit longer to load sometimes. And I actually simplified this character. Lynne had head turns in it, and that was taking a little bit longer to render out. So just for the sake of efficiency for today, I kept the character pretty simple. So first off, you notice some weird things happening with the eyes there, and you notice that the mouth isn't moving either. So something's up with this character. We're gonna try to figure out exactly why that's happening. But you'll notice, remember, it said press the Z and the X keys in the Photoshop file to trigger the character doing different things. And one way to check out what those keys are is if you go to the puppet panel. So if I double clicked on Cyberman over here, you notice that there's a column here that has a little keyboard trigger thing on it. So I see the X and the Z keys here. And actually, if I went through and looked at other parts of my character, you might notice that there are other keys that she has triggered as hotkeys as well. So that's a great way to see if you're opening up a character for the first time or something you found on one of our example files. That's a great way to look at it and kind of understand how this character works exactly and what are the capabilities, what are the things you can press to trigger certain actions. So let's go back to Cyberman and let's see what happens when I press the Z and the X key. So I'll press Z. Okay, cool. Turn to an Iron Man. If I let go, it turns to that. So I can just keep pressing Z and he'll kind of flicker back and forth. Now let's press X. Okay, now he's flying. And this guy is actually talking. So that's kind of cool. And he's moving with my face as well. So the issue that's happening here is because Lynne has 3 states of the character, Character Animator is only looking at the top layer right now, which happens to be the flying character layer. What we need to do is tell Character Animator that we also want those other 2 states to have a face and lip sync as well. So I'm going to go back to the puppet panel, and I'm going to twirl down this guy. I'm going to go to, so we know fly because that's on the top layer, that's working. I'm going to turn the mesh off for these characters actually, because that's showing a few extra things. So, okay, Cyberman Fly is at the top layer. That automatically had the face tracking happening. But for this one, Cyberman Stand, I'm going to go to my behaviors down here. I'm going to go to face. So I tapped the add button, and I added a face behavior. And I'm also going to add a lip sync behavior. Excuse me. And I'm going to do the same thing with Cyber Guy Normal below. Behaviors, face, and lip sync. Okay, so now all of my characters, all my different states should have this type of the lip syncing applied. So let's see if this works. Oh, that's a really flattering freeze frame on the camera there. All right. Okay, so great. My character is actually talking right now, and that's some really nice mouth animations. That's one of the best I've seen, Lynne, so very good job on that. So, cool. So my character's moving around, moving his head. That's pretty cool. Let's see what happens if I press Z. Okay, same thing. Character moving around and the head. But you'll notice the feet are moving, so I'll fix that in a minute. And then finally the flying. Okay, cool. So all my character is working perfectly now in terms of the mouth and the head and lip sync. So again, I noticed that the Stand Cyberman version was moving around a little bit. So I'm going to change this to a white background just for a second. I'm going to pan and move over here. And I know that I only have Cyberman normal showing right now. I could click on Cyberman stand to show as well. But I know they're basically the same body shape, so I'm just going to keep it on here. And with Cyberman stand selected, I'm going to add some fixed handles. I'm going to add a couple of fixed handles just because I noticed that with the shadow underneath, Cyberman stand was kind of, it was incorporating that as well, and it was warping in some weird ways. So let's see if this helps this character look a little better. Okay, so if I press Z, okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now his feet are kind of static, and so as I move around, I'm just pressing Z and changing between these two states, and it's looking pretty good. Okay, now you probably noticed that the eyelids are not looking so hot right now. So Character Animator gives you a couple of ways to deal with eyes. One idea is you don't need eyelids at all, and you could just say, here's my eyeball, here's my pupil, and then I have a blink. And if you have those, it's going to basically, you don't need the eyebrows at all. This character, however, has top and bottom eyelids, and this works really well when you have flat artwork like this, where you can kind of have the eyebrows blend into the rest of the face. So what I'm going to do here is I need to find the face property that controls this particular character, and I need to bump down the sensitivity on those eyebrows, or those eyelids, excuse me. So remember, I added a bunch of different face behaviors, and they're all showing up here in the right-hand properties column. So I'm going to look for Cyberman stand. Was the Cyber Guy normal? That's the one I wanted. And I'm going to twirl that down, and under eyelid strength, you can roll over any of these to learn a little bit more about what they each do. I'm going to change that to 50 and see how that looks instead. Okay, that's looking a lot better. So I'm going to take my hat off, get a little closer to the camera, see how this looks. Yeah, so I'm liking that. That's looking pretty expressive. That's, so the eyes are still following me, and now I've got these eyelids that are kind of moving and doing what I would expect them to do. So that's looking really good. This is a really cool character, by the way, Lynne. I think I said that before, but if I didn't. Okay, so now, one of the things I noticed is Lynne had a special animation in her Photoshop file of how this suit gets put on. And if you've ever seen Iron Man, I think in Iron Man 2 and 3, they started to have the suit come out of a suitcase and come appear on Iron Man like that, kind of float into place. So we're going to do the exact same thing. First, I'm going to show you how the Photoshop file was actually set up. So here in Cyber Guy Normal, you notice she has this group called Cycle Suit On. And in here are 17 layers that have different frames of animation. So I'm just going to put this on, and you can see all of them together. But if I went through these kind of one by one, you'll see here's, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Basically, Lynne made a step-by-step animation for how these things get on. So she did a little motion blur there and added it in. Blur comes in. And so 17 frames, 17 layers worth of animation to come on. So this is really, really cool. And we can do some really neat things with this in Character Animator. And this is something that I haven't done a tutorial on yet. I think this is, if I do another one, this is going to be the next one because a lot of people are interested in this. So let's take a look at how this works exactly. I'm going to go into my puppet. I'm going to find that group, Cycle Suit On, and I'm going to add the Cycle Layers behavior down here. And I've got a bunch of options about how this works exactly. So I'm going to say, okay, start when triggered, advance every 2 frames. That looks good. I could make it, instant. Do you want to take 17 frames? If I did, 1 frame, it'd be exactly 17 frames. If I was using 24 frames per second, you do the math. You can figure out how that works. So if I want it to be longer and kind of more chunky, I can play around with this. I'm going to keep it for 2 frames for now. Cycle once, that's fine for this particular behavior. If I wanted, a flame effect or something like that, that might be something I want to make continuous instead. So it's a looping animation type of thing. Forward and reverse, that's an option which I'll show you hopefully in a minute. hold on last layer. Yes, I want that because I want him to actually put his suit on and keep it there instead of disappearing. And on trigger and let cycle finish, that looks good. Now, I need to have a trigger key for how this works because you notice over here, I don't have, Cyberman Fly has the X key, Cyberman Stand has the Z key, but this does not currently have a trigger key associated with it. So what I have to do is over here in the trigger properties, I have to add a key. So I'm just going to do the P key, I think, for this one. I don't think that's being used anywhere else for this particular character. And let's see what happens. So it's incorporating the changes. And okay. And now watch this. Very, very cool. So the suit went on, and it does this kind of awesome frame by frame animation putting it on. And what I could do is mix up, the P. Remember, Z changes to the other character, so I could do some sort of state where I press P and then I, switch to Z at the last second, so it actually looks, I have the full control of the character without the other guy hiding behind it. Really, really neat. This just shows kind of the potential of what's possible with get my suit on. And you see his head is kind of showing up behind there, but that's okay. I mean, this is really cool. Oh, I also noticed that he has angry eyes if I press the A key. He gets the red eyes, which is pretty cool. Okay, so yeah, very cool. Lynne is actually in the chat with us today, so awesome to see you, Lynne. Thank you again for sending in this really cool character. Now, one of the things that I noticed with this character is, so when I press Z, the character is showing up and in this new state, but then when I let go, character goes back to normal. So one of the things you can do to make it a little easier on yourself, so you're not doing all this kind of finger gymnastics on the keyboard, is to use latching, and I'll show you how to do that. Basically, for that particular this particular character, we're going to change some of these triggers to be latch states. So when you go under trigger, I can look here, Cyberman Fly. Remember, I press X to do that. If I look in the trigger down here, I see that there's a latch checkbox that is unchecked by default. So I'm going to click that and make that active. I'm going to do the same for Cyberman Stand. And yeah, that's fine, I think, for now. I could do it to the cycle suit on too, but just for the sake of showing this, I'll show just these different states. And so once this scene loads, so now I'm just going to press it once, Z, and I'll let go, and it's still in this new state. And then I'll press X, and it's changed to this state. Again, no hands. And then if I press it again, it goes back to that character. So latch is a way, I'll use latch specifically if it's not a quick motion, if it's something like I want to change a whole character's presence, or I want him to, if you've seen that Jetpack early adopter video, I did a latch for the watches that they wear because I wanted those watches to appear at a specific point and then stay there. So that's exactly what we're doing here. Just press Z, press X, press it again. You can move between these different states. Very easy to do. So I like latching. I think it helps a lot with that sort of stuff. Jerry was asking, do you have to switch to other characters to get mouth motion? Let's see. I'm trying to understand exactly what that is. So all the characters right now I have the mouth working, hopefully. And that's because I added the face and lip sync behaviors to each. Hopefully, if your character's mouth isn't working and the face isn't working and tracking, most likely you need to add the either something's not organized correctly, so it doesn't have the exact correct names to the layers, or you need to add face, lip sync, that sort of stuff to add it in, and make sure that your webcam and microphone are on here. Okay. Oh, after the cycle action. Okay, gotcha. So what Jerry was asking about was specifically when I do that P thing. So now the mouth isn't moving because this is just an overlay state over top of the character. And it would be kind of complex to do this and then add a mouth over top. But she does have the separate state, which does have the mouth moving. So what I would do is, just kind of do this and then switch over and do this so it looks like it all comes together. So with cycle layers, you're really dealing with frame by frame specific traditional animation style. And then if you want to do more complicated stuff like mouths and eyes and stuff, I would make that a separate character. And you could have multiple versions. This guy could have, the Hulkbuster mode, or, all sorts of different things that you could do with it. You could have a bunch of different characters. At a certain point, performance becomes an issue. If you've got a bunch of art files, your Photoshop is 500 layers long. So you may want to, play around with that a little bit. Dave was asking, why is it top down in Photoshop as opposed to bottom up when using cycle layers? That's just the arbitrary way that we did it. I think we did a little user testing, and that's what people told us that they expected. But there's different ways to. That's how we do it now. If you feel like it's more natural to do it another way, let us know, and we can go from there. So, one of the things, Dave just mentioned in the chat, you could make the last frame of the cycle set to hold, and then have the entire puppet, nest that entire puppet as the last layer, and it could have a mouth. So there are ways to do that. And one thing I will say, too, excuse me, is if I go into this and cycle layer on, if I click forward and reverse, I could actually have this, and I'm going to latch it too, actually, just to show his suit coming on and off. So let's see. So I go back to the normal state. I'm going to press P. And then I think if I press P again, okay, cool. It goes off. So you can also have things, kind of come in and out if you wanted to kind of have that smooth back and forth animation if you want. Cool. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. There was something else. Oh yeah, key triggers. So the way that Lynne has this character set up is not the draggable hands like we've seen with some other characters. She actually has keyboard triggers for a lot of these different hands. So let's go into this particular character and look at like the left arm, for example. Okay, so in this left arm group, she's got this default left arm state, which just shows the left arm as is in its normal state. And then she has these variations, and each of these has a key trigger associated with this. So in the Photoshop file, she probably wrote 6 with an exclamation mark in parentheses. Another way you could see this, though, is going over here. And in the properties, the 6, you see the key trigger is 6. And then the exclamation mark is basically just saying hide siblings. It's just a shortcut to say everything else, when I press this key, everything else in this group should disappear. So siblings are considered anything else that's at the same level as this particular thing. So the siblings of left arm are all these other things. The sibling of point up are all these other things. And that's what's going to hide when you show that particular item. So let's give this a try with our character. So some of the commands, I wrote them down, were 5 is hands on hips, 6 is wave, 7 is an outstretched hand like that, 8 is pointing up, 0 is the thumbs up, H is a hand out, R is the other hand, J is that hand outstretched, N does that, A does angry eyebrows, Q does these kind of worried eyebrows, and S does this sad face, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. So you can kind of see how all these things could work together to make a really expressive character. So as I'm talking, I'm kind of doing this, and hey, so this is what's going on with my company, and how's it going, everybody, and blah 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 blah. Oh no, I'll get sued! Ah! So you kind of create this really fun animation and expressive character that can do quite a lot. Oh, I'm getting a live call right now, but I don't know who it is, so I'm not gonna. It's coming from Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know where that's who that is. Probably someone trying to sell a timeshare or something. Okay, so really, really cool character, has a lot of different options and things associated with it. One of the things I wanted that Lynne also included was this fire effect, kind of this blue flame effect that kind of emulated an Iron Man style flying, and I'm going to show that here as well. So I'm going to import that. Airstream, let's import all these at the same time and bring these in. So you can actually animate puppets. All these things that are brought in here are called puppets, and you could actually animate one of these and then bring it in and use it for another character, which is really helpful. So, for example, I'm going to do Cyberman fly, and on the body, I'm going to actually make normal guy disappear, bring in the guy flying. I'm going to pan this down. And let's bring in just one of these flames, and I'm just going to bring it into the body here. Okay, so you see that I've got this jet stream happening right here. Whoops! And unfortunately, I selected the wrong thing. So let's move it, and this maybe I'm going to move it under his feet for right now. Okay. And you can also scale it so that looks a little big. I just want it under one of the feet. I know this said hand, but I'm just going to do it for now. So I'm just going to scale this down to maybe like 50 or so. See how that looks. That's looking pretty good. And I'm just going to drag this under the foot right here. And I kind of want it to appear under the feet, I think, so I'm going to make it drag this down all the way under. And hopefully that'll show up. Okay, cool. Now, the thing to note is I need to add cycle layers to the properties. Uh-oh. Auto's getting weird. Let me try to turn this off and see if that helps. Turn the microphone off. Sorry guys, first time doing this, so something is not working correctly. Does this sound okay? Or is it back to the wormhole? Okay, cool. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. I don't know why that happened. That's strange. The phone rang. That was it. The phone. I don't know if the transmissions got off. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let's go to this, and the thing to note about cycle layers is I have to add it to the level above the foot, or above the layers. So you see that I've got my 6 layers here. So I can't add it to this group. I need to add it to this group right here. So I'm going to go there, add behavior, cycle layers. And in this case, this is a flame, so I want this to be actually continuous. So I'm going to do this. I think I want when triggered. Yes, I think so. Let's see. I don't remember. I want this to be continuously. Forward and reverse, hold on last layer, no. On treat, trigger, end. Let's try this and see how this looks. Okay, so character starting up. Oh, you know what? He's gone because I turned him on for this particular, for looking at this guy, and I want the normal state to be the one I see. Okay, so visibility, those eyeballs and stuff, they do matter as to what shows up sometimes. Okay, so let's go to the flying state. Cool, and look at that. Now he's got a fire effect that's happening below his leg. And I could copy this and do this, all the different parts. But basically that's 6 frames of animation that Lynne did for this flame effect. And it'll just keep cycling over and over again and continuing like this. So very cool. So I think that's all that I wanted to show with this character. But really, really a cool character. Very happy. This is one of the more complex characters that I've seen so far. So really cool to see it happening. I turned the microphone off, by the way, otherwise the mouth would be moving. So yes. Dave, so Peter said, you're the master of this program, Lynne. Way to go. I echo that. Dave said, a word of warning about dragging parts of different puppets into other puppets. Any changes to the PSD file will reset the structure. We're planning to make this better in the future. So yeah, if you add these sort of things and then you save and go back to the Photoshop file and save something, it's going to mess up the structure. So we're still in a preview. We're still working out all the kinks. This will be something that hopefully gets helped in the future. So Jerry's asking, in the flying state, how could I make the shadow animate, get bigger as the puppet floats up, smaller as the puppet nears the ground? So I actually haven't done that exactly, so I'm not sure exactly how I would do it. Honestly, I would do that in After Effects personally, because I would want to add the blur and I would want it going over other stuff. So as the character moves up, I would probably do something separate. There is probably a hacky way to do it, and if anyone knows how to do it, Lynne would probably be the one to figure it out. There'd also be a way to make it, static. So there's ways to do that. Leonisir is saying, is it working with stick figures? Yes, you could definitely use this for stick figures. I don't think we have any stick figure examples out there right now, but yeah, you can, any artwork. The whole idea with Character Animator is you should be able to take Photoshop, Illustrator art, static art, whatever, and find a way to animate it and bring it to life. And that's kind of the whole goal of this, is to make anything accessible. I've always been interested in character animation. I've always loved illustration, but I didn't know how to do character animation. It felt very difficult because learning all the keyframes, and I would make it look all robotic. It's kind of, there's some weirdness there. Dave just answered the question. You could apply transform to the shadow and animate the scale. You'd want to set the shadow to warp independently. Yeah, so that's a good point. So what he's talking about is, if I went into the flying here, I could go to the shadow. I could make it warp independently. I'd have to do that in Photoshop. Currently, you can't do that to what we call a skin, which is just a static flat layer. So you would need to find a way to do that. But once you do that, then you would have scale options. So any of these things, you have the option under transform to scale it. And so you can animate any of these scaling up and down. You just, press record, make sure this is armed to record, which you would do. I'm in the puppet panel, so it's not going to arm. But so you can see if I go to transform here, I've got the option to record scale. And so if I wanted, so let me have the whole character, the flying guy scale. And that would be, will that be covered under the original transform? Let's find out. Yeah. Okay, so he's moving and scaling. So if I wanted to actually record him, like zooming in and show, that sort of thing, I could, start here, make sure scale is set to record. I'm preparing it. And so now it started from the beginning now. Okay, got it. So here, I'll record. Here I am. Oh, I probably want the cycle layers to come on. Putting my suit on. Now I'm in this state. Now I'm going to fly. And I'm going to fly up. And it's probably not looking very smooth over the YouTube stream, but you can get the sense of what you could do there. So I'm recording it. I'm good to go. And that's looking pretty neat. Okay. Peter's asking about the walking animation. I'll show that in a future week, a future example. We will hopefully do more of these shows, so you'll see that then. Dave was also mentioning eventually we hope to allow rigging such that you could indicate how you want the shadow scale to be proportional to the vertical movement of the character, like expressions in After Effects. So you can kind of see there's a lot of ways that we could evolve this as it gets better over time. So we will get there eventually for sure. Okay. So we have only about 10 minutes left. So in the meantime, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to just try to create a character from scratch in Photoshop and see how that goes for our remaining few minutes. So let's go from there. And I just released the video tutorial about creating a character from scratch, but I'm just going to go and try to do it as fast as possible in these next 10 minutes. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to name this character. What do you guys want the character to be named? First person who comes up with the name, that's what will be it, as long as it's not obscene. Let's see. Dave was asking, are you going to do more of these live sessions? Yes, I hope to. This seems to be have worked pretty successfully, so I'd love to do more of these. If there's interest, I will keep doing them. Peter. All right, Peter is the name. Okay. Someone said Joe Jr. too, so I'll say Peter Joe Jr. will be the name. And let's go from there. And I want to add a plus symbol in front because I want this guy to warp independently. I'm going to move these other two groups inside. I'm going to call this head and this body. I'm going to take this layer, move it into the head group, and I'm going to make a circle. So let's make a circle, and I will make this red color, and there we go. Okay, and I want to add an origin point, which currently I have to do in Photoshop. So I will select the pen tool, make sure it's set to shape, make a single layer right where the neck would be, and I'm going to call that origin. All right, I'm going to save this. Let's just call this guy, Peter Joe Jr. Okay, and let's go back to Character Animator. See how that goes. Okay, clock is ticking. I'm going to just open up, import Peter Joe Jr., bring him in, add to new scene. Okay, so my scene, you'll notice because Character Animator remembers the last scene. So what I need to do is, with my scene selected, go to the width and height and change this to something like, I think I had the character set to 3000 by 3000, right? So let's do that. Okay. And I can already see the head tracking is working properly. The head is moving back and forth, in and out, all that sort of stuff. So we're looking pretty good so far with the head tracking. Okay, so let's add some more stuff here. Back to Photoshop. Someone was asking about a stick figure, so let's try to make this guy kind of a stick figure character. So I'm gonna just move everything up right now, and let's make a body that is a stick figure. Currently, Peter, no, you can't make the origin in Character Animator. It has to be in Photoshop or Illustrator, but that is changing very, very soon. In fact, in our current beta builds, that has already changed, so that'll be different. Okay, so I'm making the body here. I'm going to make an arm. We recommend doing the arms in an A position. We found that kind of makes the most, works the best for bending. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm just going to duplicate that, twirl it around. Okay, that's looking good. And I'm going to make the whole character just a little bit smaller. Okay. And for his leg, let's do another. And I could use, actual live shapes and that sort of thing. Oops, I didn't want that in that layer. So let's do something like this maybe. And I will flip this and reverse it, Missy Elliott style, and add a foot. I won't add hands, we'll just keep it really simple for this particular character. I realize I say particular a lot, got to work on it. When you hear yourself live, you realize all the weird things that you say. All right, I'm going to put all these pieces together for the character, put it in the body. Let's see how he's looking so far in Character Animator. Okay, so looking pretty good so far. I see that the head's moving. Of course, I want to add some fixed points. So let's, what do we have? Okay, so I'm going to go back into the puppet panel with the body selected. I'm going to select fixed, and I'm going to add fixed handles down here. And let's try adding draggable handles as well and see if I can drag the hands. And all I did, that's a little mouse icon that's draggable. That will probably change icon in the future because now you can do it with multi-touch. If you have a surface or something like that, you have the ability to manipulate the draggable points with your fingers too. So, okay. So he's kind of bending and looking interesting. And then I can drag. Hey, how's it going? And moving around. Now notice he's kind of bending in a weird place in the middle. And I think that it has to do with the origin, actually, of where you see the origin is. So let me, in the body, make an origin. I think I want him to bend kind of at the hips. So I'm going to make a pin tool right here and call this origin. Let's see if this helps. I don't know if it will. If not, I'm going to add sticks instead. basically sticks are kind of like a band-aid to everything. Okay, he still seems to be bending in there, so I'm obviously doing something wrong with how he's looking. So instead, I'm going to go in here, and Peter was asking, can you use smart objects with complex illustrations in Photoshop? Yeah, smart objects work. They'll just be translated over. They will be, I believe, rendered as an image, a raster version when they're brought into Character Animator, so you won't get the lossless part. But yeah. So instead, I'm going to go into the body here, and I'm going to add some sticks. So stick, I need to go to the body with that selected. And I'm just going to kind of do this. Okay, and I'm also going to add limbs to where these things are. Okay, Dave just said try deleting the layer 4 copy handle. Okay. I think that's going to delete everything though, because I think currently that unless there's a way to delete just that specific name. Okay, so let me try this. Okay, so now he's a little more fixed in his bone structure, and I also have the arms working pretty well too. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to do the dragger set in place, hold in place, just to get the poses instead. Hey, how's it going? And in the limited time that I have, let's just add some eyes and see how that goes. So I'm going to go into here. I want to create, actually, I'll just create one group first. Let's just make this guy one-eyed for now. First thing we want to do is add a eyeball. Twirl this around. And we will call that right eyeball. And this is going to be called the right eye group. And I will put a plus in front of that because we want it to warp independently. I'll duplicate that, make it smaller. I'll move into color overlay properties, and I'll just do like a, yeah, let's make his eyes blue. Why not? I'm going to flatten that. I'm going to call that right pupil. And that I also want to warp independently because I want it to be able to move independently of the head. And then I want to make a blink state as well. So let's just make one more thing, call it right blink. And I'm going to make a square there. And make that black. Okay, so now that makes it look like his eye is blinking. And I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to duplicate this whole thing. Move it over, call it left eye, and left pupil, just changing everything from right to left. Now I should also say one thing you can do is use libraries if you have parts that you keep using over and over again. So like a lot of my characters have the same mouth or the same eyes, and so you'll notice in Photoshop you got your libraries tab here. Oh, hopefully I don't have anything obscene over here. Okay, great, I don't. So you'll notice I have some different mouse shapes and characters in here, and all you can drag these into your puppet if you wanted to, which gives you a lot of flexibility over use the same thing over and over again. All right, so this is the last step for today. Let's see. I won't add a mouth, so he'll be mute, but let's see how he looks within Character Animator. Okay. So that's looking pretty good, and his eyes are moving around and looking, and I've got the blinking happening. Everything seems to be scaling correctly. So pretty cool. Very cool. Now, if I want to do the same thing to the legs, we were talking about, how do you do a walk animation? How do you make them kick or dance or stuff like that? I could take the fixed handles out of the character and, just drag those around too. So let's just do that real quick. Actually, this isn't going to look that great because of the sticks. I'll just do this really quick. I'm kind of adding the different parts of the leg. Add draggable handles down here. And now let's see what happens. Okay, now he's moving, but I also have the ability to kind of kick and move around and some other stuff. I'm probably going to want, if I hold in place, then he'll kind of, wherever I put this, then he'll kind of move around and do some stuff. This guy's ridiculous, so he obviously needs some work. Hey, best I could do at the last second. So anyway, that is it for today. I just wanted to thank everyone for watching and tuning in. Yes, we'll hopefully do more of these in the future. I don't know if it'll be every week, maybe every other week, maybe once a month, something like that, depending on what the interest level is. There will be an archived version of this later, so feel free to check that out. If there are questions about anything that we showed today, feel free to ask in the YouTube comments below. Or within Character Animator, there's the welcome panel. So if you go to, when you first start up the app, you get this. Go to feedback forum, and that will take you to the full forum with all sorts of questions and answers, and people ask all these sorts of things, and a lot of the team members are here and will answer your questions. I'd also suggest checking out Character Animator tutorials, which will give you some online video tutorials of all the different things that some great examples of what you can do in Character Animator, as well as Character Animator examples. That is an example to a really great art project that Dan Ramirez on the team put together that has examples of a lot of stuff, including if you're more interested in the cycle layers stuff, check out Gene and Fury. They have fire coming out of their hands and electric bolts and stuff like that, so there's a lot of good stuff there. This is a free download, and you can use these characters however you want in your own videos as well. So yeah, that's it. That was my script, and yeah, that's it for today. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll be back next time with another version of Character Animator Live. Thanks a lot.